Hey guys, you've heard of the Young Turks podcast because you're listening to it right now. But make sure that you subscribe and give it a 5-star rating if you like it. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Young Turks, Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. Okay, so today is, Anna just said it as we were coming on there, and she's right. It's kind of a great news day.
It's an awesome news day.
Yeah, because it's snowing in August.
Oh, it's snowing. It's so cold for conservatives. They're melting though, it's weird.
Well, I would suggest that they hurry up and get to a safe space as quickly as possible.
Oh, they're fleeing for their safe spaces right now as we speak.
Okay, no, you guys are gonna see, we're not playing. Like, the theme that unites today is not even bed bugs. You'd think it'd be bed bugs, but it's actually snowflakes. 4 different stories from 4 different right-wingers who are triggered by the most minute, like literally in the case of bed bugs, the most minute things on earth. They're like, hey, how you doing? How dare you, dear sir?
It's amazing.
Okay, freedom of speech advocates, hilarious, hilarious. All right, so last night Anna was on Cuomo. We're gonna show that to you in a second. Tonight I'm gonna be on Cuomo. Let's go kick some ass. This is fun. Isn't this fun? So Anna was awesome last night, as you're going to see in a minute. And then I want to let you guys know how we're doing on Town Hall. So tyt.com/town hall to do a climate crisis town hall /debate. Now the DNC said there will be no debate, and they are allowing town halls where people can go back to back to back to back, okay? Now, why is the Young Turks one different? Why do we want to do it? Well, first of all, we want to do a debate. So we're gonna try like hell to get a debate to happen for them to be on the stage at the same time. I explained the longer plan yesterday on the program. Secondly, I think we're gonna get some killer moderators. So hold for the moderators. I think that could be amazing, interesting, fascinating, and already great news. God, I love TYT Nation. So one of our viewers, it looks like, got us an enormous venue in LA for free. Yeah, okay, all right. No shoulder shimmy yet. No shoulder shimmy yet. Okay, hold. Okay, let's see how it plays out, but it looks amazing, and you guys are wonderful. So speaking of how you guys are wonderful, we said, well, if we can raise $100,000, then we can make this thing happen. Now, mind you, normal debates, town halls for like the CNNs of the world are at least $1 to $2 million. So at $100,000, we're gonna put it together. We're gonna put okay. If we get more, great. It'll look better, etc. I can give you some of the details on the cost later. But anyway, 100,000 was still considered an outlandish number, of course. And I said, well, if we can get 20,000 in the first 24 hours, that would be amazing. And it would show that we're serious and get people to think very seriously about participating. Okay, so did we get 20,000 in the first 24 hours? Well, there's like an hour and a half left because we announced it late in the show yesterday. We didn't get 20,000. We got a lot more. So we got 20,000 in the first half hour. Okay. You can do shoulder Anna's excited about it.
I am. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, you should be. Okay. What do we have so far? $76,056.
You guys are out of control. This is amazing.
2,527 individual donors. I think the average is around $32 that people are chipping in. So this thing's gonna happen.
It's amazing.
Okay? Amazing. So already on day 1, we know it's gonna happen. Number 2, we got an hour and a half. Can you put us over the top? Let's get to 100,000. Look, I'm saying it's gonna happen because I'm convinced from you guys that we're gonna get to 100,000. We do have to get to that. And then we can see, hey, can we soup this thing up? Can we actually make this look great? And who else can we get to participate? The more resources you have, the better you can make it, both stylistically, but also substantively. So let's keep going, tyt.com/town hall. And I said this at the very end of the show last night. You guys make believers out of me, because I wasn't sure we were gonna raise the 20, let alone 76, let alone 100.
I knew.
There she goes.
Come on.
So, and look, what makes it awesome, last thing on this is that it's people powered. when we go to folks, we go, hey, listen, man, this is both the idea of the audience, their demand, and they're not playing. They put up a significant amount of cash to make this happen. That is compelling. That's really compelling. Then what are you gonna do, not show up? And so you are all of our power, and that's why we say together we're too strong, and it's absolutely true. We provided an outlet, and you guys provide the strength and the power that makes this possible. And I'm telling you right now, with this money, we're gonna be able to make something great happen. With more, it'll be even better and give all of us more strength as progressives. So let's go get them.
All right.
Okay.
Let's get to the news. First, I want to start off with Cuomo. So, yesterday, there was a poll out indicating that both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are tied at the top of the poll when it comes to Democratic candidates for president. They're both polling at 20%, Biden polling at 19%, which means that they're at a statistical tie. But the big takeaway was that Biden lost a considerable amount of support among various groups or demographics within the Democratic Party, including Democrats who consider themselves moderates and conservatives. So I was invited on the Cuomo show, Cuomo Primetime, in order to debate this with Ana Navarro. So Ana Navarro is representing the moderate Democrats, I'm representing progressives. And an interesting topic came up in the middle of this conversation. I'm just showing you the part that I think was the most fiery, I guess. With that said, let's take a look.
Will Kasparian get behind a Joe Biden? Will you get behind a Joe Biden?
I want Trump out, so I do agree that it's important to support whoever
Look how you're
ends up winning the
Look how you're backloading it.
No, I'm not backloading it. I mean, I did not like Hillary Clinton as a Democratic candidate, but when push came to shove, the right thing to do was to vote for her, and that's what I did. Even as someone who lives in California who could have very easily casted a protest vote. But let's cross that bridge when we get there.
We're a long way from it. Long way.
We are a long way from it. But I just want to quickly talk about or answer the question about who would be the best challenger to Donald Trump. I mean, look, Biden's got to figure out which state he's in first before he talks about fighting Donald Trump. I mean, he's campaigning in New Hampshire. He thinks that he's in Vermont. He's had one gaffe after the next, and Biden has this habit, and I think you see this with a lot of establishment Democrats, where he thinks he can work with the right wing and compromise with the right wing. I think that establishment Democrats are really missing the point. We don't want someone who's gonna concede to the right wing. We want a fighter. We want someone who's gonna make the Republican Party bend to our will, because we've been conceding to their side for far too long, far too often, and that has created the type of political climate and the political situation we're dealing with today.
Yeah, so Anna, that was an amazing job, but first I got to give credit to Chris Cuomo one more time, and I'll tell you why. Because on that same CNN network over the last 24 hours, we had Jeffrey Toobin come out and dismiss that poll that Anna was referring to as a rinky-dink poll. And then Harry Anton came out and he said, oh, it's an outlier. And he's almost screaming into the TV. Normally he's just very calm. The numbers guy comes out, hey, Joe Biden's leading, everybody's happy, right? Now all of a sudden, for the first time, Joe Biden's not leading, and he's like screaming into the camera, like, no, wait, this is an outlier. You should ignore this poll. Ignore this poll, right? Okay, hey, take it easy, take it easy. And in the bad old days, well, that would have been it. And it would have been all establishment Democrats or Republicans talking amongst themselves, is it gonna be Trump or Biden? A set of choices that most of the country doesn't want. Cuomo provided a space for actual progressives to go on air. And you could tell because Anna says things like, we're gonna make them bend to our will, which I haven't heard that in television since I was on MSNBC. But other than that, for like 20 years, right? That was previously unallowed on television, strong progressives. So she says that, I'm back on tonight. So they're not stopping us. I know it's kind of a funny thing to praise CNN for, but they should be praised for that. MSNBC doesn't have anything like that on air right now.
Right, so look, I wanna be super clear. I give Cuomo and his producers all the credit because they do provide a platform for progressive ideas, and you don't see that anywhere else in cable news. I mean, Brian Stelter also invited me back on. That was like a few months ago, so I give him credit for that as well. But I mean, in terms of repeat progressive guests, you're right. I mean, you've been going on Cuomo on a regular basis, and it is important to break through to people who don't necessarily watch digital media or independent media. It's important to break through the people who are relying on CNN to get all of their information. And if you don't have that progressive view represented, well, then there's an entire world out there that some of these viewers are completely unaware of. And I think that people do want a fighter. I mean, some on the right saw that segment and decided to come after me and argue that I'm being authoritative, or authoritarian, I should say, authoritarian. And I'm like, you guys support Donald Trump, who like wants to bypass Congress in every way possible to get exactly what he wants. So
right-wingers crying about authoritarian government. Are you crazy? Really? With a straight face?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, the Democrats have been unfortunately incredibly weak in our lifetimes. And so it's about time we had strong progressives that say, no. I'm tired of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, beseeching Republicans. Oh, please, pretty please, will you work with us? How about we beat them with a stick politically, and we crush them, and we win, and then we enforce our will? When Republicans say that, everybody's like, well, that's normal. Of course, bravo, Republicans, way to be strong. When Democrats say, well, first of all, they're not allowed on television previously. Now, when you hear it on television, they're like, are they allowed to say that? And apparently we are, so that's why we're giving them credit. Look, CNN also has Alexandra Rojas as a contributor. She's the head of the Justice Democrats, so it's not just us. Van Jones, there are other people on CNN. It's all of a sudden not like this weird aberration. I think that they're quicker to acknowledge that there is actually a progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And guess what, Harry? I know you're upset about this outlier poll, but it's real. And we're winning. And think about this, guys. Even when the Antons of the world freak out, and as long as, by the way, he freaks out, in my opinion. I'm sure he thinks that I freak out about different things. But as long as everybody's allowed on, let's have an exchange of ideas. No problem at all.
Totally agree. And by the way, like I thought, so Cuomo wants to challenge all of his guests. So I'm not taking this personally at all. I actually like when he challenges me because it gives me an opportunity to answer common right-wing talking points or maybe moderate Democrat talking points that we see. But the whole thing about like backloading in that very first part of the clip, like, what did I say that made it seem like I was backloading? I thought that was interesting.
I get what he's saying. I mean, he's basically saying, look, you're saying, hold my nose and support Biden.
Of course I'm gonna hold my nose.
Yeah, and you're saying, yeah, that's true. So I think that's what he means by backloading. Yeah. And so I don't think, he's not that wrong about that. I hate
that question though. I hate that question, not because I'm worried about telling people what I'm gonna do. I just don't want to message to establishment Democrats that we're gonna hold our noses and vote for them no matter what.
Yeah, and look,
right? So
you're absolutely right about the framing. Yeah. So last thing I'll say about that, and I want to say one more thing about MSNBC and CNN, is that they always frame it as, will the crazy Bernie people support the mainstream Democrat when he obviously eventually wins, right? You could frame it as the much more interesting question, which is, will the establishment Democrats support Bernie Sanders if he wins?
I was gonna ask Ana Navarro that, but I just decided I want to move on and just talk about the importance of electing someone who's gonna fight, you know?
So, and that's a much more legitimate question because the overwhelming majority of Bernie Sanders supporters did vote for Hillary Clinton, more so than Hillary Clinton supporters voted for Barack Obama in 2008. So there's actually facts and evidence to show that Sanders supporters do come back into the fold at higher percentages than averages, historical averages. But you have nonstop people on television saying, no way for Bernie, never Bernie, never Bernie. So that's a legitimate question. Are these corporate Democrats gonna, go against their own bread and butter and go against their lobbyists and consultant friends and all their money to support Bernie Sanders? I think they should start asking that now. You know why? Because Bernie Sanders is now at #1. So getting back to that poll to finish that thought, look, the Entons and the Tubins, et cetera, now we're all in the same place arguing over the things and you get to say anything you like. But Harry, we're gonna meet you at the next poll and the one after that and the one after that. So you can get all emotional that, oh my God, my beloved Joe Biden doesn't have the lead anymore. This poll must be crazy. I don't believe these numbers. No problem. I'll see you at the next poll. Okay, and we're gonna win that one and the one after that. And there'll be a little bit of variations, et cetera. But if you think Biden's gonna has the lead and is going to keep the lead or is going to retake the lead, well, I'm going to be proven right and you're going to be proven wrong, and the whole country's going to see it. So God bless, that's an exchange of ideas. On the other hand, at MSNBC,
oh God,
their idea of a progressive is someone who's like, I find Bernie Sanders physically repulsive, and I have no basis for that. I just wanted to say because I hate him. And they're like, see, bravo, progressive. She doesn't like Trump either. No, that's not a progressive.
Yeah.
And they're littered with ex-Republicans or current Republicans who are like, well, yes, Trump is erratic at times, but not Bernie. Okay, so I don't know that you could point to a single person on MSNBC who's as progressive as any of the people that I named at CNN among the progressives. And by the way, guys, you know what we do? We bring people with us, okay? So I'm on first, and then and Anna comes on.
And then I shut the door.
Yeah, we don't shut the door.
No one else.
And Alexandra Rojas, part of that mix, etc. Kyle Kalinski's gonna come. John Iadarola is gonna come. Okay, and when we look, man, super last thing. I know I love this poll, and I don't care about it being one poll or if it's an outlier, etc. It's a trend that I've been showing you all throughout. We were right, etc. And you'll see it in many polls going forward. We got a long way to go. My point is, guys, even if you thought this poll was an outlier, let's just say that they're all tied at 20, 20, and 20, right? Biden, Sanders, and Warren, because it's close enough to that it's a statistical tie, right? That means progressives have 40%. Conservative Democrats only have 20%. So, oops.
I didn't think about it that way, but you're right.
Yes, so that means we're gonna have the next president. And so MSNBC can try to block the gate and be like, no progressives allowed. But guess who's gonna come through? Someone who's gonna go through the gate and then live and work at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You're not gonna be able to stop that gate.
All right, so I wanna move on to one of the many reasons why Bernie Sanders is awesome. And it has to do with something that he put out just yesterday, right before I went on Cuomo's show. So let's get to that. It's no surprise that traditional media outlets, and I'm talking about media outlets that do real journalism, are facing a very difficult media landscape. In fact, local news has been eaten up by these giant media conglomerates, and that allows for corporate control of a few corporations over all of our media. And it's something that Bernie Sanders wrote about in the Columbia Journalism Review. So in his piece, he not only sheds light on this huge problem in journalism, but he also talks about what his solutions would be as president. So here's what he says. We are going to institute an immediate moratorium on approving mergers of major media corporations until we can better understand the true effect these transactions have on our democracy. He also writes, we will reverse the Trump administration's attempts to make corporate media mergers even more likely in the future. We are not going to rubber stamp proposals like the new plan to merge CBS and Viacom into a $30 billion colossus. So there's more. There's so much that he wants to do, and there are also details that he, talks about, the concerns he has about media that I want to get into in just a second. But has anyone, as a presidential candidate, talked about media conglomerates? I don't think I can think of a single person other than this example from yesterday. Bernie Sanders saying that, hey, this is a huge problem. This goes against our democratic process. We need an informed public. So we need to actually focus on this issue.
Yeah, the only other person, unsurprisingly, in at least half of the context is Elizabeth Warren. She talked about breaking up the big digital companies like Facebook, Google, et cetera, which have gigantic digital media components. And Elizabeth Warren's been plenty tough on business interests overall. But yes, Anna, when you're talking about the media conglomerates from traditional media, Bernie Sanders is talking about it, and he's doing it with nuance, and I want to dive into that a little bit because he says, look, 28,000 jobs have been lost in traditional media over the last decade, basically. 3,200 jobs have been lost in the media industry just in the last year alone, which is very significant. 1,400 communities have lost local newspapers. Nobody else is talking about these trends, okay? Certainly at the presidential level. And And this allows people to consolidate power. And then when few multi-billion-dollar corporations own almost all the media, they control the message, they control the framing, and they control so much more. He also criticizes the media for supporting, the status quo because of that, and supporting corporate interests. Now that's usually verboten, not allowed. The rest of the media then come down on him like a ton of bricks, and they did. They look at this proposal, and almost all the write-ups are sneering, even though he's trying to help the media. They're like, no, you dared to criticize us from the left, which is totally unacceptable. From the right, you could bash us all day long, make up conspiracy theories, threaten our lives, and we'll cower to you. But from the left, if you have a legitimate, thoughtful critique, our feelings are hurt, and we'll pretend that you're against us. When if you read his real proposal, he's actually trying to save the media.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, look, I think it really does depend who the commentary is coming from. So if the commentary is coming from independent journalists or from individuals who worked in these local publications who lost their jobs, my guess is these types of proposals appeal to them. But if you are given a multi-million-dollar contract to be a host on cable news and your company falls under this giant media conglomerate, yeah, I mean, you either love this and you can't really say anything about it, or you hate it because it puts your financial future in jeopardy, or your very lucrative financial future in jeopardy. So let me give you some more of what Bernie Sanders wants to do. What Trump has done allows cross-ownership of newspapers and television or radio stations. He has also given the green light to owning multiple stations in the same market. So in the beginning of Trump's administration, there was that big story about Sinclair Broadcasting Group and how they're snatching up local stations all over the country, and they're really monopolizing the news and the messaging that gets out there. So that's one example of what Bernie Sanders is talking about here. We will start requiring major media corporations to disclose whether or not their corporate transactions and merger proposals will involve significant journalism layoffs.
They will.
Yeah, and they do. Oftentimes they do, and we've seen that over and over again. Employees must be given I love this part. Employees must be given an opportunity to purchase media outlets through employee stock ownership plans, an innovative business model that was first pioneered in the newspaper industry. So oftentimes the hardworking people behind the success of these publications or these television stations, they don't get paid enough, they don't have benefits that would, actually appeal to any average person who needs healthcare or, a retirement plan. And so he's saying here, look, we need to have the employees get a seat at the table, have some ownership of the company through these stock options. And I love that. He's all about looking out for employees. He also focused on the necessity of diversity within these newsrooms, which I love. So he also says, additionally, we will pass my workplace democracy plan, which will boost media workers' laudable efforts to form unions and collectively bargain with their employers.
Yeah, none of the bosses are gonna like this. And so, the more I read it, the more I thought, man, he's got a good shot at winning. And so, you know why? Like, you do know why, but the guys on television, and by the way, it's not just television. I think some of the most egregious violators of bias in the media is the New York Times, NPR, on and on it goes, okay? And their base assumption is, this system is awesome. Any challenge to this system and the bosses who run it is unacceptable. And so, but the more they keep saying that, like Bernie Sanders would actually change the system and he would give the workers rights. It's outrageous. What people heard is Bernie Sanders would change the system. I really like that. Workers would have more rights. Wait, I'm a worker. Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah,
right. They're accidentally doing advertising for him. And they can't see straight because they're like, well, all the people in charge don't like Bernie Sanders, so I'm just gonna keep repeating that.
So
thank you.
David Sirota, who is on Bernie Sanders' campaign team, had tweeted something about how he's been rising in the polls despite the very negative and hateful coverage toward him in the mainstream media. But I don't think it's despite. I think that their attacks on Bernie Sanders, as you just mentioned right now, helps him because it draws attention to these proposals that people, average Americans, I'm not talking about executives, love. right?
Yeah, but look, guys, how many times have you heard me say on the Young Turks? I mean, if you're counting about $1 billion, if you're playing drinking games, you're obliterated at this point. American voters do not like big business, they don't like big media, and they don't like standard politicians. That's based on the polling. All of them poll miserably, 30%, 20%, 10%. Congress once fell to 9%, maybe even 7% in one poll. And everybody on TV tells you, oh, Americans love big business. They just, you gotta, hey, that's who creates the jobs, okay? And Americans love big media like me, right? Getting paid $10, $20 million a year. They love that, they love it. And then when I support everybody who's powerful, they love that. And polished politicians who are constantly changing their strategy with no principles at all. Americans love that. None of that is true. None of it is remotely true. So what I've been saying and advising publicly progressive candidates is run against that. If you bash those institutions, American people will love you for it, even though the media will yell at you. You got to brace for impact. And you got to be able to say, damn the torpedoes, damn my colleagues, because they're gonna get their feelings hurt first, and they're gonna rush out and be like, hey, Bernie, come on, I take money from Comcast. Are you saying I'm corrupt? I'm your colleague, Bernie. Well, sad day for you, then don't take money from Comcast. And I'm moving on with my life. You gotta have the nerve to say that. You gotta have the courage to say that. And then the media will all yell at you in unison. And that is a tough thing to deal with if you've never dealt with that. Luckily, I have, so I know how that feels. But if you're gonna run for president and you're gonna win, you got to do that. And now that Bernie has begun to do that in earnest, he always had the right policies, but he wasn't, honestly, and you heard me say that this many times, back in 2016 and in the beginning of this campaign, he wasn't being tough enough on the media and his damned colleagues. And so now that he's taking a much more aggressive stance, hey, look at that, rise in the polls.
Love it. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we have excellent reporting from our very own Emma Vigeland. She covered a protest about water quality in Newark. I love this story because of the activism involved, so don't miss that. And then later in the show, conservative snowflakes.
Yeah, and I'm gonna update you guys on the town hall situation in a sec. But yeah, do not miss the conservative snowflake stories. There's 4 different ones, and they're all awesome.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called On the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm gonna tell you the town hall number in a second, but Oxford Golfer says, okay, working poor, but contributing to the town hall. Climate change is serious to the human race. Love it, thank you. Jackson says, hey, Cenk and Anna, my fiance Jessica and I just donated $27. We live in Burbank and are so excited to be able to meet other TYT members in the LA area. Here's looking forward to an unforgettable event. We hope so too. Actually, so let me pause there to give you the number, guys. Now, we went from 76,000 in the last segment to $81,379 with 2,728 individual donors. Amazing, okay.
Amazing.
Yes, and now 2 things that are interesting here. that I just want to make note of real quick. Francesca the Greek says, is Cuomo a TYT member? And the answer is yes. So that's because of you guys, as always. Remember when we did that campaign at the end of last year to amplify our voice and get our message out? One of the teams that got an Amplify package was Cuomo's team. And they were actually one of the ones that actually opened it and used it. So thank you. Again, always the TYT army that makes this stuff happen. And then last one here is, I want to correct the record on this. The Mathemagician says, you guys gonna cover the New York Times story about how Elizabeth Warren is licking the boots of the establishment and telling them how she's a team player unlike Bernie? The mask is slowly slipping from her face. It's actually pretty sickening with her record. No, we're not gonna cover that. We'll see you later. No, okay, I read the story and I was really nervous because I really like her and I think she's done great work as a progressive. And so when I heard the description of the story, I was like, oh no. And I went and read the story. No, if you read that story carefully, I swear to God, I'm not biased.
I want to read, I haven't seen that story.
Yeah, it came out yesterday.
Tweet it to me if you haven't already.
Right,
yeah.
What she's saying is, hey, I raised $11 million for other Democrats in the last cycle. If you think like, aha, Bernie raised $10 million for other Democrats in the last cycle. They did the same exact thing, okay? And she did not say, hey, I'm gonna look out for donors. She didn't say what Biden said behind the scenes, which is, don't worry, nothing's gonna change. She didn't say any of that. If you read the article, all she did was saying, I'm gonna work within the Democratic Party and I'm gonna make the party stronger, but these are my progressive principles. I was looking for something wrong, but there wasn't anything wrong in what she said.
Look, I have to read it for myself, so don't take too much out of what I'm gonna say right now. But I don't even like the language of, I'm gonna work with the moderate Democrats and improve what's going, no.
No, I'm worried about that. No, I get what you're saying.
You gotta stick to your principles, period, right? Like if she wavers on those progressive principles.
No, Anna, that's what I was on the lookout for.
Right.
I just said it in the last segment, I've said it 1,000 times. Stop worrying about your damn colleagues, right? You're never gonna get anything done if you're worried about, oh my God, protecting the feelings of other Democrats. So I was reading like a hawk to see, was there anything coded she said, like, hey, don't worry, we're gonna protect incumbents. And not even flat out saying it, but implying it. And she didn't do any of that. She just said, yeah, of course we're gonna rebuild the Democratic Party. I would say the same goddamn thing. So hold, okay? If you got something real, we're more than happy to uncover it, talk about it, etc.
All right, also just a quick reminder, on Friday of this week, our power panel will be a little different. We're gonna do the show as normal. However, we are going to air our show on Zumo. So go to zumo.com/TYT to watch. Also, if you're a member, you can watch the show like you typically watch it. It's available to our members uninterrupted. You can become a member by going to tyt.com/join. All right, with that said, let's move on to the rest of the news.
What do we want? Clean water. When do we need it? Now. What do we want? Clean water. When do we need it? Now.
All right, that's a little bit of Emma Viglin's report on protesters who assembled outside of the MTV Video Music Awards in Trenton, New Jersey.
Newark.
I'm sorry, Trenton,
Newark, New Jersey.
No, the music thing was in
Trenton. Oh, my bad, guys. Sorry to interrupt your story.
It's okay.
Obviously, the lead poisoning issue the lead issue is in Newark, but apparently the VMA happened in Trenton. Well, Trenton makes the world takes.
Yeah, so we nailed that.
Okay,
that was good.
Sorry,
It's okay.
Totally screwed that up.
All right, so the protesters wanted to raise awareness about what's been happening in Newark, New Jersey, and it has to do with lead in their drinking water. So let me give you a few details before we toss to a little bit of Emma's report. And by the way, I do encourage you to watch her full report, which we'll link to in the description box below. So while Cory Booker was mayor and chairman of the board of the NWCDC, which is the Newark Watershed Conservation and Development Corps, the agency's officers skimmed roughly $2 million in illegal kickbacks while running virtually all of Newark's water infrastructure. The agency was disbanded and put into the hands of a team of legal experts who filed for bankruptcy. Now, there were people who actually went to prison as a result of skimming that money. Cory Booker was, taken to task, but apparently accusations against him were later dropped. However, one of his allies, a woman named Linda Watkins Brashear, got 8 years in prison. And again, the lawsuit against Booker was dismissed. Now, let me give you some more. In June of 2017, citywide tests showed that more than 10% of homes across Newark had twice the amount of lead that's considered safe, according to federal law. So they keep failing these safe drinking water tests, okay? There's lead, unsafe lead levels in the water. It keeps showing up over and over again. The Essex County Improvement Authority finally agreed to lend $120 million to the city of Newark to replace the pipes that are contaminating water with lead. And this is what the officials announced at a news conference on Monday. Now, with that said, I do think it's important to hear the protesters out. That's why Emma went to this protest and spoke to some of these activists. Let's hear what they had to say.
This administration, with that man right there who's recording us, because we promoting accountability, we want people to be held with criminal negligence charges. It ain't over.
He stands up here and he laughs because his citizens don't have clean water. This is who represents us. And I'm supposed to trust that he's gonna do right by $120 million, that he's gonna fix my people's lead pipes? No, we know who he represents. We see who he represents. And this is indicative of the entire administration. From the top all the way to the bottom, they all need to go.
His name is Rahman Muhammad, and he is the deputy mayor of employment, and he works for the mayor's office and has been filming these people asking for clean water for 20 goddamn minutes and laughing in their face.
Okay, so you want to watch the full report because apparently Emma confronted him?
Yeah, I saw it. And so, look, I haven't seen Emma that mad in ever. Right? And so, the full report's fantastic, and he tries to pretend that he wasn't laughing at them. Nobody's buying it. He panically, in a panic, ends all interviews. Okay, and so I want to be clear. The protesters are not talking about the Trump administration. They're talking about the administration in Newark. And so the mayor there is Ross Baraka. They're upset with him. They're upset with Booker, etc. So Baraka says, "Look, man. But this isn't like Flint. Everybody keeps saying like it's like Flint because they have the same degree of lead in the water. So you got to be super careful if you live in Newark. But he says in Flint they chose not to do precautions. In our case, our pipes are 100 years old. We just realized it too late that it had gotten bad. But the protesters say otherwise. They say no. Baraka writes an angry letter to Trump once he got caught. And they realized he wasn't doing enough to address the situation. They're also mad and concerned about Booker because of the contract that Anna referred to earlier in this segment. And so, and Booker constantly, and this is the protesters saying it. Booker constantly says, "I'm from Newark, I'm from Newark." But then why don't you come down here? People will listen to you and make this a bigger issue. Whether you were involved or not involved in the problems that happened before, you could at least work to fix them now. And Booker has put out a statement, but it's not like he joined him in the protests or anything.
So let's actually hear from some of these protesters who had some comments to make about Cory Booker. Let's take a look.
The Newark Water Coalition has been trying to sit down and meet with Senator Booker since July 9th. We've been in email exchanges with one of his staffers, and we've been pretty much pushed to the side on this issue. We tried to reach out and talk to him about what residents were experiencing, and I feel as though he's part of the response, like part of, what's going on, and he should take partial responsibility.
I think that he was very Newark forward and definitely wanted people to know that he was from Newark, and that was his base, and that's what got him to the Senate. And I just wish that at one of his meetings here, where maybe he's hosting a dinner to raise money for his presidential campaign, that maybe he just say something, right? Or maybe he'd come out here to maybe not something like this, but be seen publicly saying, hey, there's an issue in Newark. Because he has the privilege of having the press, right? People listen to him. They think what he says is important. And so if he was just to even mention that Newark is having a problem, I think that we wouldn't be begging for funds and begging for a solution right now.
So they're playing hot potato with this problem. Oh, it's federal, state, local. No, we have a much bigger problem in America, which is that our infrastructure is crumbling. So some of it is understandable because we built it a while back. So for example, China has built a lot of their infrastructure over the last 5, 10, 20 years. So it's pretty new. Our infrastructure is oftentimes, like in Newark, over 100 years old. But that's why every once in a while, the government has to invest in rebuilding infrastructure. Otherwise, there's gonna be lead in the water. You know what lead does? It actually changes your brain and it makes you more prone to violence. It lowers your IQ. It is devastating. If I thought there was lead in the water where I lived and I got young kids, I mean, I don't know what I'd do, but I'd be in a full-blown panic, and I think any of you would. And so the first woman you saw in that last video with Emma, she had a powerful part of that interview, which again, we'll put the links down below if you're watching later on YouTube and Facebook, just click on them and watch for yourself. But she talked about how, look, I got a 5-year-old. Did it already change his brain? I wanted him to be a scientist. And now maybe he can't be a scientist, I don't know. No, we can't live like this. I mean, this is worse than a third world country. And it's the main thing that it's about is the powerful people don't care about the rest of us. And it screams through at every level. And you can see in those protests, and you can see it in the coal miner protests in Kentucky, and you can see it everywhere. People finally going, I can't take it anymore. The teacher strikes all across the country, hey, they're never gonna get to us. The idea was, oh no, you give everything to the rich and the powerful, and then they literally call it trickle down economics. And it's supposed to trickle down to us. And after 40 years, people are waking up going, they're never gonna get to us. It's never gonna trickle down to us. That wasn't the point. The point was to give everything to the rich and the powerful. So when the rich and the powerful tell us, no, don't worry about it. It's their fault or this fault, but we're not really gonna fix it, or it's gonna take us a long time to fix it. It is maddening. And if you put the people that live in Washington, D.C. that are powerful in that district in Newark, where their kids all of a sudden are exposed to lead, that might change the dynamics of their brain. Do you know how quickly it'd get fixed? All of a sudden there'd be panic. Oh, my kid, I was gonna send him to private school. I already paid Harvard to get him in later, 20 years from now. I can't have lead in his water. How about our kids? That's what these protesters are saying, and that's what you gotta listen to. How about our kids?
When we come back from the break, we'll give you an update on the fires in the Amazon and how Jair Bolsonaro, the president, the illegitimate president of Brazil, responded to efforts to give the country aid to deal with the fire.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Fires.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back in the Young Turks, members' comments, tyt.com/join to become a member. Odysseus says, God damn, I love Emma. She owns the East Coast. Watch out, Rick Ross. Ruben the Space Pirate says, hey Cenk, do you know what you're going to be talking about on Cuomo? Yes, we're going to talk about some polling, that's going to be fun. And how farmers feel betrayed by Donald Trump. Yes, can't wait to tear into a conservative on that one. So Hercules makes a great point. Considering the recession that is coming, a massive infrastructure project will help counter the recession, not to mention the other benefits that come with doing such a project. Great point. Look, in my mind, I got a lot of plans, and that's among the plans. Yeah, when the recession hits, of course you're gonna need to do infrastructure to rebuild things and help the economy as well. Michelle says, just made a donation for the town hall. I couldn't afford much because I'm trying to donate to Bernie as much as I can, but I wanted to help. Guys, look, we ask a lot of you, so bless your hearts for doing all the things that you do. And I totally get that too, and thank you for taking part. So let's go to tyt.com/townhall and see what we got. 84,000. The wrong in my version is $85,119. 2,856 individual donors. Almost there. We got about 45 minutes left. Can we get to 100,000? Can I see 100,000 and finish it in 24 hours? Last comment, it's just for fun. On Twitter, Stone Buddha says, based on your description of lead poisoning, Cenk, I hypothesize that Donald Trump ate paint chips as a child.
Totally. He bathed in lead paint.
You know, it's not that bad a theory. Okay, anyway. And I didn't want that to happen to him either. Look at what it caused for the whole world.
Well, yeah, and we're about to see some of the consequences of Trump's actions in Brazil. So let's get to that.
Let's do it.
All right. During the G7 summit, which just ended, the leaders of these countries decided to take a vote on what to do about the increased rates of fires in the Amazon. And so they voted in favor of giving the Brazilian government $22 million in aid in order to help them combat these fires. Now, Jair Bolsonaro has responded to it. That's really the heart of this story. But first, let me just tell you that Jair Bolsonaro is part of the reason why these fires, actually the main reason why these fires have increased in the Amazon rainforest. Now, with that said though, Bolsonaro said that if Emmanuel Macron, the individual who announced this $22 million aid package, withdrew, quote, insults made to my person, and what Bolsonaro interpreted as insinuations that Brazil does not have sovereignty over the Amazon, he would maybe reconsider. So at first he's like, no, I don't want your money. And then he's like, but I kind of do, only if you apologize and you say exactly what I want you to do, because I'm very offended. You offended my person.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So these guys who pretend to be strongmen, these right-wing leaders, they're so delicate and fragile.
So delicate and fragile.
And there's another word for it. It's called weak.
Yes.
And insecure.
So can I?
So let me just.
Sorry.
Look, Trump said that he's not going to Denmark because the leader there offended him and hurt his feelings by saying that his idea was absurd, as he says. He says, she said, called my idea absurd. How can I go? I don't know. Be a man. Take a tiny bit of criticism and move on with your life? I mean, you're constantly yelling at our allies, constantly demeaning them, insulting them. Our enemies you love, North Korea, Russia, etc. Those guys you don't have enough praise for. But our allies, you spit in their face. The minute they say, hey, that went a little too far, you're like, oh, my feelings are hurt. Well, God damn it, you're the president of the United States. Nobody cares about your goddamn feelings. Go do your job. Now, Bolsonaro, being the same weak, insecure, pathetic person that almost all these right-wing leaders pretending to be strongmen are, comes out and goes, well, I'd like to take $22 million to help my country and to stop the fires that are destroying the Amazon, which is hurting the whole world, but you hurt my feelings. I mean, and remember, on top of all that, they're stupid enough to say it out loud. You idiot, you could have just said, hey, it affects our sovereignty and left it at that and pretended that it had a real legitimate reason, but you're so dumb like your buddy Donald Trump that you go, my feelings were hurt. My daughter, my 6-year-old daughter has an LOL doll that cries and has water coming out of its, I'm gonna name one Bolsonaro, I'm gonna name the other one Trump. And so they're like, yeah, I'm going to hurt the people and the planet because of my precious little feelings. Pathetic.
So they are sensitive, Trump and Bolsonaro, and they do have other similarities. Both of them are insecure because both of them are illegitimate, right, as leaders. So with Trump, I mean, he won the Electoral College, so in our context, he's not illegitimate, but he is very sensitive to the fact that he lost the popular vote. 3 million more people voted for his political opponent, and he's incredibly sensitive about that. Now, when it comes to Bolsonaro, he is definitely illegitimate because he had his political opponent who was polling, in the 80% mark during the election. He had that person imprisoned under completely false nonsense charges, right? And Glenn Greenwald's excellent reporting has really shown how the judge in the case was working with Bolsonaro in order to imprison Lula da Silva, who was leading in the polls. He's still in prison today.
They're both criminals. Bolsonaro and Trump, they should both be in prison.
So the reason why they're so insecure and sensitive is because they know who they are, what they are, and that they don't really have the majority of support in their own countries. Now, with that said though, Bolsonaro also is the main reason why we're seeing these fires in the Amazon. So for instance, the space agency, the Brazilian space agency, had put out images that showed what the rainforest looked like from space. And they found that there was a 278% increase in deforestation. And it's because of Bolsonaro rolling back regulations that would protect the Amazon. Now, what did he do? He fired the head of the agency, just like Trump would do. Yep. You dare cross him, he's gonna fire you. One other thing, Trump has an impact as well because Trump, through this trade war, created a situation in which countries who imported soybeans from America are now looking for other growers, other countries to work with. And so you know what Bolsonaro did? He's like, go ahead and clear out the forest, start growing soybeans. Why don't we become one of the top soybean producers in the world? And so, look, this trade war has ramifications for so many different countries, obviously our own included, but look at what it's doing to the environment, right? So there's that. Bolsonaro also said, quote, to talk or accept anything from France, even with their very best intentions, he will have to withdraw his words, meaning Macron, and then we can talk. First, he withdraws them, then he makes the offer, and then I'll answer.
Look, this is literally stuff that used to happen in third grade. If you don't take that back, I'm gonna take my ball and I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna tell mommy what you did, okay? You gotta take that back, take your words back. This is the conversation we're having among grown adults, let alone world leaders. And in terms of people crossing him in his government, get a load of that irony. You use the government to imprison your political opponents. The people that you fired crossed you by showing facts. It was literally a picture of things that are actually happening. He's like, no, I don't want people to see the facts. So, and then they'll always, the right wing, because they like to say racist and bigoted things, will pretend they're in favor of free speech. But the minute, anytime anyone shows them actual facts, they're like, fire them, get rid of them. We can't have that in the government. And then finally, at least I've found a constructive solution here. Since Bolsonaro is a giant snowflake, maybe we put him over the fire and he puts it out. Okay, so right wing, you're not allowed to call any liberals or progressives snowflakes that get triggered and need a safe space, because your leaders are the biggest snowflakes in the world. They get triggered so easy and they're so stupid, they tell everybody that their feelings got hurt, and that's why they're doing things to damage their own country. So go find them a safe space, get them the hell out of our lives, and never ever complain about snowflakes again.
We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we have more snowflakes, and we're gonna correct the record on Andy Ngo, the person who likes to go around making himself out to be a professional victim of Antifa. In reality, he likes to turn a blind eye to right-wing violence.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.